Have you ever imagined a day when the government steps in to control the food on your plate? When a crisis hits, the seemingly harmless items in your pantry could suddenly become targets for seizure. That scenario might not be as far-fetched as it sounds, as the canned goods you rely on to survive tough times become scarce or even confiscated for emergency purposes. Are you prepared for such upheaval? In today's video, we'll uncover the 10 most common canned foods the government might prioritize retaining during a crisis, and what you need to know to navigate this situation. Don't miss out. What you're about to hear will make you rethink your preparedness. Number 1. Canned meat. Have you ever considered that the cans of meat you casually toss into your shopping cart could become a rare commodity in the future? Don't dismiss this as mere alarmism. Should a severe crisis strike, be it a natural disaster or an economic collapse, the government might prioritize controlling these very products. When that happens, your favorite canned meat might no longer be within easy reach. Why is this the case? Canned meat isn't just a quick and convenient food option. It's a long-lasting product that requires no electricity for preservation, making it invaluable when power grids fail or transportation systems grind to a halt. In times of crisis, the demand for food surges while supply dwindles. Essential items like canned meat become prime targets in the government's emergency distribution strategies. One key reason canned meat is a crisis essential is its extended shelf life. Unlike fresh meat, which spoils quickly without refrigeration, canned meat can sit on a shelf for months without going bad. In a scenario where cold storage isn't an option, fresh meat becomes a luxury and canned meat emerges as the only viable alternative. This is why safeguarding food reserves becomes a critical task during any crisis. Moreover, canned meat provides a rich source of protein essential for maintaining health over prolonged periods when fresh food is scarce. A recent study revealed that during disasters, families often turn to long shelf-life foods, with canned meat being one of the most stockpiled items. But precisely because of this, when demand far outstrips supply, the government may face tough choices about redistributing these food resources. If you think stockpiling canned goods is unnecessary, it's time to reconsider. In a crisis, no one can guarantee access to sufficient supplies. Prepare yourself and your family. Now don't wait until it's too late to realize that those cans of meat could become a precious asset. Number 2. Condensed milk. Surely you're no stranger to those familiar cans of condensed milk tucked away in your kitchen. Right, more than just a key ingredient for beloved desserts, condensed milk is a breakfast staple or the perfect addition to your morning coffee on chilly days. But have you ever imagined a time when condensed milk might vanish from supermarket shelves? It sounds far-fetched, but the reality is this could happen sooner than you think. We're living in an era of skyrocketing prices and severely disrupted food supply chains. One of the biggest factors driving the shortage of condensed milk is the scarcity of raw materials. The price of fresh milk nationwide has surged, directly impacting condensed milk production. Manufacturers are grappling with unprecedented production costs, and continuing to produce condensed milk may soon become unsustainable. But what's even more alarming is that this shortage isn't just a temporary hiccup. If supply chain conditions don't improve, products like condensed milk could gradually disappear from store shelves. Remember, non-essential items are always the first to be scaled back in production. And condensed milk, despite being a household favorite, could easily be sidelined in a crisis. So what would you do if you couldn't find condensed milk in stores? You might assume you could grab it from another shop, but beware. When shortages spread, local stores and supermarkets will run dry too. Those cans of condensed milk you've always taken for granted could become a luxury you can't even touch. Picture this: in just a few months, you might be waiting weeks to find a single can of condensed milk. You could regret not preparing sooner, not stockpiling those seemingly harmless items that could turn into rare commodities during a crisis. Don't wait until condensed milk becomes something you can only buy at exorbitant prices. The time to act is now. Number 3. Canned beans. Have you ever imagined a day when the canned beans you and your family love could no longer be found on supermarket shelves? You probably wouldn't think twice about it until a crisis strikes. And don't wait until that moment when those trusty cans of savory beans from your favorite brands vanish entirely. Cast your mind back to the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Canned beans weren't just an affordable, shelf-stable food, they were a lifeline during lockdowns. Supermarkets faced widespread shortages, and canned beans were among the first items to sell out. According to a Nielsen report, within just 2 months, canned bean consumption surged by 42%. This means it wasn't just you, millions of others also realized the true value of this humble staple. Now what if another emergency hits? An economic collapse, a natural disaster, or even a national food crisis could make canned beans nearly impossible to find. Disrupted supply chains, stalled production plants, and beloved bean brands might struggle to keep up. Manufacturers will scale back, and when that happens, shelves will stand empty, leaving behind only echoes of the foods you once took for granted. If you don't stock up now, you'll face a harsh reality. Beans won't be easy to come by. You'll stand before barren supermarket shelves, staring at the void where you never thought scarcity could exist. And in that moment of hunger, you'll realize you didn't act in time. Canned beans may not seem like a game changer for your meals, but in a crisis, they're a matter of survival. Packed with exceptional nutritional value, easy to prepare, and capable of long-term storage, beans aren't just a smart choice, they're a necessity. When options run dry, beans could be your only lifeline. So why gamble and wait until it's too late to start searching? If you don't prepare today, don't let the day come when supermarkets run out of canned beans and you realize you're too late. Number 4. Fruit juice. Whether it's orange apple or another variety, fruit juice has become an indispensable beverage in the refrigerators of most households. But in today's volatile climate, that could change faster than you'd expect. Let me break down why. One of the primary drivers of fruit juice scarcity is climate change. Relentless heat waves, prolonged droughts, and cascading natural disasters are ravaging key fruit-growing regions in the U.S., particularly in states like California and Florida, which are powerhouses for oranges and apples. Statistics show that California alone has faced severe drought since 2020, slashing crop yields and directly hammering the fruit industry. This has led to a critical shortage of raw materials needed to produce fruit juice. But that's not all. Juice processing companies are grappling with the relentless rise in costs for essential ingredients, including sugar and preservatives needed for long-term storage. These factors inflate production costs, forcing manufacturers to hike prices to levels that strain consumers' wallets. In fact, major juice producers have reported price increases of 10% to upward 15% over the past year, a significant jump. This could make families think twice about splurging on fruit juice in the months ahead. On top of that, with inflation and soaring costs, the juice industry faces massive challenges in supply and transportation. Moving produce from farms to processing plants has become more arduous than ever. Disrupted shipping routes and spiking fuel costs are driving up the entire supply chain's expenses. In this environment, producers can't keep prices stable, and when costs become unaffordable, consumers will have no choice but to abandon fruit juice. But the deeper concern is that fruit juice isn't just battling production and shipping woes. The industry is also locked in fierce competition with other beverages like mineral water and energy drinks. Meanwhile, consumer demand is waning as more people seek healthier alternatives. Here's the undeniable truth: these issues will lead to a fruit juice shortage in the market. Supermarkets won't be able to stock the quantities you and your family expect. Picture this: in a few months you head to the store, craving your favorite carton of orange juice, only to find barren shelves, or if you're lucky, a price tag double what it used to be. The sinking feeling of not finding a familiar staple will be inescapable. Remember, as supply dwindles, demand surges, and you'll pay a steep premium for items you once grabbed without a second thought. Fruit juice will be no exception. You could wait until it becomes a rare commodity, but will you have the patience to hunt it down, or will you be stuck with sky-high prices and scarce stock? The truth is, this isn't a question of if, it's a matter of when. Number 5. Canned fruit. If you used to think canned fruit was a convenient, shelf-stable, always available option at the supermarket, then 2025 may have made you think again. From golden peaches and sweet pineapples to colorful fruit cocktails, these seemingly humble foods have now become luxury items for many American families. The reason: a combination of factors: natural disasters, supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, and trade tensions. Let's start with the weather. In 2022, Florida, a major supplier of citrus fruits for the entire country, was hit by devastating hurricanes like Ian, Nicole, and Fiona, causing orange production to drop by 51%, reaching the lowest level since 1937. This didn't just affect orange juice, but also impacted the supply of canned fruits like oranges, pineapples, and other tropical fruits. Next, the supply chain. In September 2024, a strike involving 45,000 port workers across the U.S. crippled the import of fruits from countries like Mexico, the Philippines, and Thailand, key sources for canned tropical fruits. The result was empty shelves in many supermarkets and a prolonged shortage for consumers. But that wasn't all. New tariff policies implemented in early 2025 caused import costs to skyrocket. Specifically, tariffs on products from Asia, such as pineapples, mangoes, and fruit cocktails, rose from 10% to as high as 25%, significantly driving up retail prices. According to data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the price of canned fruit has increased by 168% from 1997 to 2025. That means a can of fruit that cost $150 in 1997 can now cost over $3, placing considerable strain on household budgets, especially for low-income families. For many Americans, canned fruit is not just a snack, it's a vital source of vitamins and fiber, especially in areas with limited access to fresh produce. The shortages and rising prices have forced many families to cut back or completely remove canned fruit from their shopping lists, impacting their long-term nutrition and health. In today's climate, accessing canned fruit products has become a real challenge for many Americans. And if you think it's just canned fruit that's in trouble, wait until we talk about the next essential item, where the shortages don't just affect what's on your plate, but the livelihoods of millions. Number 6. Canned soup. Why is it that in every photo of emergency stockpiles, whether it's a storm shelter in someone's backyard or a military supply depot, the one item you'll see in overwhelming abundance is canned soup? It's not because it's tasty or cheap. It's because in the world of non-perishable foods, canned soup is the ultimate survival staple. The first thing people reach for when chaos looms. A can of soup isn't just a meal, it's a pre-packaged emergency solution. Packed into that small container are all the basic nutrients your body needs. Protein from chicken or beef chopped vegetables for vitamins, broth for essential minerals, and carbohydrates from pasta or potatoes. It's everything you need to make it through a power outage, a traffic lockdown, or worse, a long, uncertain crisis. In 2023, canned soup sales in the US surged by 22%, according to data from IRI Retail. This wasn't just another seasonal spike, it was a clear sign that Americans had started stockpiling again, fearing a return of supply chain disruptions. People weren't just grabbing a can or two like they used to, they were filling shopping carts with cases of soup, especially the classic Campbell's and Progresso varieties known for their 2 to 5 year shelf life. But this very boom has created a paradox in the canned soup industry. In 2024, Campbell's had to shut down a major plant in Texas to restructure operations, while smaller manufacturers are being squeezed by soaring ingredient and packaging costs. Many soups now cost 50% more than they did just a year ago. What's worrying consumers even more is the fact that emergency agencies like FEMA have begun aggressively stockpiling as well. Internal reports show that soup is being rapidly restocked in food reserves across 37 high-risk states for natural disasters. What that means is if a crisis hits, the government won't wait around. They'll secure supplies before the public even realizes what's happening. Number 7. Canned vegetables. As fresh produce prices swing wildly by the day, many Americans have quietly made a seemingly simple decision switch to canned vegetables. No washing required, no refrigeration needed, and most importantly, no price spoilage when food inflation surges. But few realize that this so-called backup option is now at the center of a silent crisis. According to Nielsen IQ, in just the first quarter of 2024, US, consumption of canned vegetables jumped 18% compared to the same period last year. What's concerning is that this spike wasn't driven by flashy marketing campaigns, but rather by a defensive response from consumers amid prolonged shortages of fresh vegetables caused by extreme weather and skyrocketing transportation costs. Flooding in California, droughts in Texas, deep freezes in the north, all of it has taken a toll on the produce supply. And when fresh vegetables are no longer a convenient choice, people naturally turn to a more durable alternative: canned goods. Think there will always be carrots, baby corn, or peas waiting in a can of Green Giant or Del Monte on your grocery shelf. Think again. According to a February 2025 report by the American Canned Food Association, nearly 40% of vegetable canning factories are now operating below capacity due to a lack of raw produce. Farmers are struggling short on money for fertilizer fuel and labor. Many are cutting back on planting or abandoning their harvests altogether. Worse still, as the federal government begins quietly rebuilding strategic food reserves for disaster-prone regions, canned vegetables have become one of the top priority items for emergency aid organizations. No public memo is needed. You can already see the signs: food banks, disaster relief programs, even the military are buying in bulk, silently draining retail supplies without a word of warning. If you think canned vegetables are just a forgettable side dish on your dinner plate, try living for 5 days without a fridge, without a grocery store, and without a single fresh leaf of greens. Suddenly that lonely can of peas isn't so boring. It's a rare source of vitamins in a time of scarcity. And in that moment, you'll wish you'd bought more before the shelves went empty and a sign read, "Out of stock. Return date, unknown." Number 8. Canned fish. Imagine walking into Walmart or Costco one day, strolling past your usual grocery aisles, only to find the canned fish section completely wiped out. No more chicken of the sea tuna, no sign of the wild planet salmon you've been saving for quick meals, not because you showed up late, but because the entire supply chain for ocean-sourced fish has been quietly unraveling for months. Did you know that the US currently relies on imports for about 85% of its seafood, and a large share of that goes into canned products consumed nationwide. But according to 2024, data from NOAA seafood imports into the US have dropped by 27% compared to 2021, largely due to global logistics. Breakdowns container shipping costs more than doubling and most critically overfishing. That has left many marine regions with insufficient and unstable yields. For canned fish manufacturers, this is no longer just a market challenge, it's a matter of survival. In 2023, Bumblebee, one of the largest canned tuna brands in the US, had to slash production by nearly 15% due to a shortage of high-quality tuna from the Pacific region. Meanwhile, retailers have seen a 21% spike in canned fish sales over the past 12 months, according to data from Circana. This has created a troubling paradox. Demand is surging, but supply is shrinking fast. And the government isn't staying on the sidelines. Emergency management agencies like FEMA have already started stockpiling canned fish in large quantities for long-term storage, viewing it as a reliable, shelf-stable protein source in scenarios involving natural disasters, war, or food crises. In other words, what would normally go to consumers is quietly being rerouted to more critical national reserves. Many still think of canned fish as a backup option, something easily replaced. But with the price of fresh meat climbing steadily, canned fish has become a crucial, affordable source of protein, especially for working-class families or elderly individuals living on fixed incomes. Now imagine what happens when that last safety net also begins disappearing from the shelves. At this point, the question isn't how high canned fish prices might climb. The question is how much time do we have left before it disappears altogether? And when that day comes, will you be ready? Number 9. Canned instant noodles. They used to laugh at instant noodles, calling them college food. Poor man's dinner, but in times of crisis, this once-mocked staple becomes the survival weapon of choice for millions of American households. Because not everyone can afford fresh groceries every day, and not every home has steady access to electricity, gas, or clean water for cooking. You might not have noticed, but in 2023 alone, Americans consumed over 4 billion packs of instant noodles, according to the World Instant Noodles Association. That's nearly a 12% increase from the previous year, with no signs of slowing down. The message is simple: when the economy slumps and prices skyrocket, people reach for the cheapest, easiest food to store, and instant noodles are the undisputed champion. The paradox. Because they're so common and so cheap, instant noodles may soon become the next item in short supply. Look deeper into the production chain. The main ingredient in instant noodles is wheat, and the US now imports over 10% of its total wheat consumption due to prolonged droughts in states like Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Meanwhile, global wheat prices have surged nearly 40% over the past 2 years, partly because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, two countries that together account for more than 25% of the world's wheat exports. But that's not all. Palm oil, essential for frying the noodles, is also facing a steep price hike due to shortages from Southeast Asian countries. Since 2022, the price of imported palm oil has risen by over 50%. These pressures are forcing manufacturers like Nissan Maruchan and Nongshim to consider either raising prices or cutting back production. Now imagine this in a full-scale crisis, whether it's a natural disaster, a pandemic, or civil unrest. What happens when those simple, always available noodle cups vanish from shelves within hours? It's not hard to recall the empty aisles of 2020 when COVID-19 struck, and instant noodles were among the first items to disappear. Don't assume you have time. In a storm of inflation and silent stockpiling by the government, those humble items you thought were always cheap, always plentiful, may be the next to quietly vanish, taken by the invisible hand of crisis. And when that moment comes, will it already be too late for you to prepare? Number 10. Canned potatoes. Canned potatoes may not be a family favorite at the dinner table, but they quietly occupy shelf space in nearly every emergency food stockpile, from military rations and refugee camps to the basement pantries of families living in snowstorm-prone regions. Why? Because potatoes are one of the cheapest, most storable, and most versatile sources of carbohydrates in any crisis. Whether sliced, mashed, or freeze-dried into pellets, a can of potatoes can sit on a shelf for years and turn into a warm, filling meal in just minutes. But the real story isn't about convenience, it's about a silent threat of disappearance. Let's start with a little-known number. U.S. potato production fell by 61% in 2023, compared to the previous year, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA. Why? Severe droughts in major growing states like Idaho, Washington, and Oregon forced farmers to scale back planting. Idaho, in particular, responsible for more than 30% of the nation's potato supply, recorded its lowest irrigation water levels in nearly 40 years. There simply aren't enough fresh potatoes to go around for both the fresh produce market and the food processing industry. So who gets priority, restaurants, grocery chains, or industrial giants like McCain and Lamb Weston companies with long-term contracts and the power to lock down entire harvests? In this squeeze, canned potatoes typically made from lower grade or surplus spuds are being quietly pushed out. Dozens of small-scale canneries have already halted production due to a lack of raw materials. And with climate conditions growing more volatile and transportation costs continuing to soar, the outlook for this supply chain is anything but stable. Here's the kicker: canned potatoes aren't a flashy item like milk or cereal, but they're the fallback card. Millions of people reach for when the fridge is empty. A single can of sliced potatoes can anchor a pot of soup, bulk up a stew, or simply be mashed with butter and salt to create a calorie-rich, comforting meal. But what happens when one day you walk into the store and the canned potato aisle is completely empty, not because someone hoarded it all, but because the entire supply chain has stopped? That's no longer a hypothetical, it's a scenario slowly taking shape. And those who aren't paying attention or preparing in advance will be the first to feel the impact. You can believe it or not, but what's happening with canned food right now is a warning shot. No one knows what tomorrow holds, and the items you once took for granted on store shelves could disappear overnight. The real question is, are you truly prepared if a crisis hits? If the government must prioritize food supplies for the military nursing homes or lockdown zones, who gets what's left? Of course, this isn't a prophecy, and there's no guarantee these foods will definitely be seized, as the title suggests. But in an unpredictable world, early preparation is never wasted. What do you think? Are there other types of food quietly vanishing that we haven't mentioned yet? Leave a comment below. Share this video if you found it helpful, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth breakdowns. We can't stop a crisis from coming, but we can be better prepared when it does.